Hey, everybody. Welcome to Bridging the Seen and Unseen. My name is Shane McLain. I am your host. I am glad to be here, but man, oh man, what a week. How about you, Gwen?
It's been a week for me too, Shane, but we are here and we have got some awesome guests tonight.
We
So
do
it's going to
have
be
some
great.
awesome, and the thing is about these guys is I've had a chance to work with these guys, and they are so they're just good guys in general, and they have a wonderful team. They have a wonderful just like adaptability. Like they're so eager to learn new methods and stuff like that because I don't like to use the term professional, but they are they're really good at what they do, and I look forward to seeing what they do in the future. So but let's before we get on, let's go ahead and bring them on. It's Jason and Gary from Tri-C.
Jason and
Hey,
Gary.
what's up, buddy?
Hey Shane, good to be
Hey
here.
guys, how are you?
Great,
How are you?
Good.
Glad to have you guys here, and thank you for coming on. I started this podcast, guys, because like I wanted to. My whole goal was to bridge the gap between paranormal and clergy. I've had great success with this. I've had some really good people on, like you guys. But before we get into all that, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are?
Gary, you want to go ahead and tell them about Tri-C, and then I'll get into the dirt team.
So we are team members on Tri-C Ghost Hunters. We are the largest paranormal team in the state of Ohio. We do residential investigations. Just an amazing team, amazing opportunity to be on that group.
Yeah, we have three teams that make up the entire Tri-C Ghost Hunters, and they're kind of based out of Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. We split the state up into three jurisdictions, as I'd call it. And whenever we get a client that needs help, they will contact us through our website, and those cases will be distributed to the closest team. And then they'll have a lead investigator who reaches out to that client, and then we just start the process from there. There is a fourth team. We call it the Demonic Investigation Research Team.
Absolutely.
The acronym for that is DIRT. So the way that got started, we're still kind of in our infancy here. The Paranormal Clergy Institute had reached out to us because they needed a team in Ohio to kind of work for them and investigate for them when they have any demonic claims inside the state of Ohio. So what we did was we put together a team that would cover the entire state of Ohio within Tri-C Ghost Hunters. And members from all three teams, from Columbus, Cleveland, and Cincinnati, are all members on this team. And what we do is when the PCI says, hey, we need you to check this out, we start the investigation and we kind of report back to the PCI. So we are not demonologists, just to be clear. We're not exorcists or anything like that. We are paranormal investigators.
Yeah.
So what we do is we'll go and we'll investigate the claims. We turn all of our evidence over to the PCI, and they're the ones who will determine if it's demonic or not. And then they handle all the aftercare after that.
Yeah. See, and I think that's amazing that you guys do it. And you guys have several different divisions. You even have a division in Florida, don't you?
We do. That's fairly new as well. We just started a chapter out in Florida. Yes.
That's good. Now, are all these divisions that you have are going to have a dirt division, or is it just you guys?
As of right now, it's just in Ohio. Like so, the Florida team, they're fairly new. I think they only have 2 people right now, so they're accepting members. But yeah, as of right now, it's just in Ohio.
Okay. Yeah, and I want you guys to know too. Please feel free to share each one of those, even all your divisions that you have on the 5 different areas. Put them on our page, Outer Realms. Put them on All Access. We want to help. We want to help. Promote you guys and get you guys out there too, because I really like you guys. I think you guys have a huge heart for this. How did you guys get into the paranormal? And I ask this because there's some people that have been, like me, for instance. I'm 47 years old. I had my first paranormal experience when I was 10 years old. So yes, I am clergy. and everything, but I've always known in the paranormal since I was 10 years old. So that was 37 years ago. When did you guys know that you were getting into the paranormal, and what got you into the paranormal?
Go ahead, Gary. I think Gary's frozen. So I'll go ahead and go first. Well, I've actually been, interested in the paranormal, since I was really young, since I was, it started maybe junior high school era. And the show Ghost Hunters with, Jason Hawes and Taps and all that came out. And I was a big fan of the show. And I thought it was really cool when they would capture an EVP and things like that. So I started getting interested in it back then. It wasn't until probably 2017, 2018, somewhere in there. I lived in this old farmhouse that was built, maybe in the 1880s, I think it was. And there was things going on in that house I can't explain. It started out, there would be doors that would open and close on their own, but it's an old house. It's drafty. I kind of chalked it up to that. But one thing that I could not explain was I was standing in the kitchen and I watched my kitchen faucet turn on by itself. Like the water turned on, and I watched it happen. And there was nothing that could have caused that to happen. So I started looking into, all the equipment that they use and kind of researching what they use and what it does. And then I started buying it. And just being kind of a novice amateur rookie investigator that I thought I was, I would go to cemeteries and I would try to make contact. Didn't really have a lot of luck with that. But I kept studying and learning about the paranormal and learning about the equipment, how it works. And eventually I applied for Tri-C Ghost Hunters and got on the team.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, so ever since you got into the paranormal, you've been with Tri-C? Yeah,
that's the only team I've ever been with. Yep.
Okay. That's awesome. When I got in, like I said, I've been in the paranormal. My wife and I, since we were young, we both had experiences when we were 10 years old. But we didn't think about a team or anything like that. But when we got in, we couldn't decide whether we wanted to join a team. And I knew, and I still do, I know a lot of people. So what I did is I went and people were reaching out to me and they were like, well, why don't you start your own? Mm-hmm. And so I was thinking, I'm like, well, I'm in dialysis and, and I don't want it to, consume so much time. Well, immediately I had people wanting to come on board. Yes. So, and then not only that, but I even had a UK division when I first started.
Okay.
So when I started Outer Realms a year and a half ago, matter of fact, it'll be a year and a half. The 9th of this month will be a year and 6 months that we started Outer Realms. And when I started, I had regular Outer Realms, and then I had a UK division too with a UK director also. As of right now, I don't have one. We took the UK division because there's just a lot of problems over there, but I do have a main page. So that was a year and a half ago though. And we're growing just like you guys. Yeah. But I've always been into it and I've always been intrigued by it. And, like I said, I want to bridge the gap between paranormal and clergy. And what I mean by that is I was a full-time pastor. People would come into the church. They would have real issues, real problems. And all I would hear was, well, we'll put you and your family on the prayer list, and then they're like, thank you, but is there any way you can help us? And then if somebody were to have an issue with a haunting, the first thing the church wants to do is tell you that it's demonic. And not all hauntings are demonic. And to get people that are on the church side to understand that is a lot more tricky than to get people from the paranormal side to believe in the theological cleansings and clearings that I do. It's easier for them to understand that, but it's not it's not that easy trying to convince people that are dedicated churchgoers, to believe that not all hauntings are demonic. Now, when you guys do cases, how many times have you guys gone into a residential case and the client has said something about demonic to you?
It's happened quite a few times. Historically, Tri-C ghost hunters wouldn't touch demonic investigation. Whenever there was a demonic claim, when people were claiming that, and it wasn't really just because they didn't want to or because they were scared of it. It was more because the chances of running into an actual legitimate demonic case are so small.
So small.
It's more likely there's a lot of like mental health issues.
Yeah.
And some of these clients can be dangerous. And it's because of that we would just refer them to their local clergy. But now we're getting to the point where we have backing on the theological side, because even if we did have a demonic case, we can't do anything with it.
Oh, you got me working. with you. I'm right there with you, man.
So now that we have the Paranormal Clergy Institute as our backing for this, we're more equipped to take a case like that.
Yeah.
And that's where one thing that all three of us share is the desire to bridge that gap with the theological side and the paranormal side.
Yeah.
We think that's really important because they can kind of work together when our main objective is helping people. And
yep.
Tri-C has a motto, which is keeping it real.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we will run into clients where we can't tell them that they have a haunting, but it seems like they want so bad to be haunted, but we will not tell them that. If we don't have good, hard evidence that they have a haunting, we're not going to tell them they do. Yep. And even more so when the word demon comes up, you put that in their head and forget about it. That you cannot convince them otherwise.
Sure.
Yeah. Hey, Gary, how about you? How did I know you were froze up there for a few, but how long have you been into the paranormal, and then how long have you been with Tri-C Ghost Hunters?
So my first paranormal experience, I was 13.
Yeah.
Obviously, at a young age, that's a very, very life-changing event, and it kind of makes you question everything you've ever learned.
Everything.
And I still, to this day, I still question absolutely everything.
It is.
You have to question everything, especially in what we do. I started actively investigating paranormal in 1996, was on several small teams throughout the years, and then I joined actually the same time Jason did in 2021.
Okay. All right. That's awesome. Yeah, I was telling him, Gary, I had my first experience when I was 10. And it wasn't anything scary. It wasn't anything. I was standing in a mirror in my grandmother's 4-year room or whatever, in front of a mirror that my grandfather made. He built the wood. He did the stain of the wood. He built this mirror, and he had passed away. And my grandfather was a really big man. He was from Ireland. He was 6'4", 285 pounds. He was chief lieutenant for SLED, which is South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. He was a well-respected man, not only in the church, but in the community and in law enforcement. So with that being said, I was standing in the mirror and I was adjusting my tie, and I looked up, and my grandfather was right behind me with his hand on my shoulder.
Ironically, about my grandfather, that was my first experience at 13.
With your grandfather?
Just a month prior.
Yeah, see, that's what I mean. And I had a couple experiences with him, and I turned around to look to see if my grandfather was there, and he wasn't there, and I turned back and he was gone. But I knew if I said something to my grandmother would be like, stop it, because she was a diehard. Every time the church doors opened, she was in there.
Mm-hmm.
She's probably the most dedicated churchgoer I've ever seen in my whole life. My grandmother is the reason why I actually got into ministry, was because of how she was and the servant attitude that she had when she was. But before she passed away, I know she had an experience too.
It's amazing.
My grandfather, did your grandparents sleep in different rooms?
They did.
That so did mine. So did mine. I don't know what it was back then, but I think after 50 they started sleeping in different rooms.
Yes.
But my grandfather had his room and he passed away, and my grandmother kept it tidy as anything. Tidy as anything. But my grandfather had this meticulous way that he would do things in the morning. 6 o'clock in the morning, I get up to go use the bathroom, and I see steam coming out of my grandfather's bathroom. I'm like, man, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. Who in the world could be in that? My grandmother had her own bathroom, and I was like, so I went to open the door, and the whole place was filled with just steam. So the hot water was blasting on, and I went and I cut it off or whatever and let some of the steam come out. And I walked out of the bathroom and I looked at the bed, and my grandfather, when he would get up, he would take and fold the cover back, and it'd be in a little triangle like this on the cover. He would get up, he would go right ahead of him, open the closet, pick a suit out, put the suit on the bed, and put the shoes right there at the bottom of it and go jump in the shower. I looked at his bed, and now, granted, he had passed away. Granted, and when I came out the bathroom, I looked. The bed was turned back. A suit was on the bed. The shoes were out, and even the foot indentions where somebody was underneath the covers was on his bed. And my grandmother got up, and she came in the room, and she looked at me like, why'd you do that? And I'm like, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
You know, and then she started noticing like every single thing that was there. And I couldn't have memorized everything that he did, but it was everything he did every single day. And another crazy thing is that the suit that was on the bed was his favorite suit that my grandmother bought him and he wore for their 50th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
Wow.
So, I mean, like I said, I know she had an experience. I know she did. But my grandmother was the kind of person that if she had a paranormal experience happen right in front of her, she was the kind of person that would be like, just ignore it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were your grandparents like that too?
Yeah.
My grandmother, no. My grandmother was very much believed. And actually, when I told her about seeing my grandfather, she was very supportive of it. She actually had at the same relatively the same time, and that was kind of the reason it steered me towards starting to question things and look into things and trying to figure it out. But as far as the rest of my family goes, it's taboo.
Yep. Yeah. And you said you've been in since what, 96 or so? Yeah, like I said, I had mine at 10, and you know, as a teenager we tried to find ways to, you know, we didn't have all the like equipment that we have nowadays back then. Yeah. But I do have old school methods of investigating. Like I would use the red Solo cups.
Yeah.
And I would turn them upside down, and I would grab ping pong balls, and I'd take the ping pong and rub them against my head like this and call static electricity. And you take the ping pong and put them on top of the Solo cups, and if an entity got close to it, the ball would shoot across.
Yeah.
You know, so that was just one little simple way. But, you know, the flashlight thing's been around forever. What's your guys' favorite equipment? What do you use as favorite equipment when you're on the paranormal?
Go ahead, Gary.
I mean, personally, for me, it's my digital recorder. The amount of EVPs we've captured over the years, and just having conversations like we're having now, not paying attention to anything.
Yeah.
You that recorder constantly and go back and bam, there's something there.
Do you keep it constantly going, or do you have sessions that you do?
I do both. I run one constant and I run one that is burst session.
That's smart. That's smart, because then you can go back and you can see like questionable answers if something responds to you by questioning. And then if you hear something abstract coming through, you know, you can add those to the EVP. That's smart to do that. That's good. How about you, Jason?
I'd have to say the same, the digital recorder. I like the spirit box, even though I'm still a little skeptical of that. because it is scanning radio, you know, you mean anything that, I mean, The theory is it's going so fast, you shouldn't be able to hear a DJ or a commercial or a song.
Right.
But if you introduce that possibility that it could have been that, you kind of have to throw that evidence out. Now,
Yeah.
if you get a really definitive, intelligent response, those are more likely to be believable. But when it comes to the EVPs, just by digital recorder that you've captured, those I put a little more stock in. But you've also got to think about, the environmental conditions you were in. You got to think back when you heard that noise, what else could it have been? We just had a pre-investigation yesterday, and we ran a couple burst EVP sessions. Didn't last more than 2-3 minutes, maybe asked 5-6 questions. And there was one spot in an EVP, or not an EVP, but a recording I was listening to on my audio software. And there was a spot where I had asked a question, and it sounds like there's a voice right there, right? Maybe a couple seconds after I asked it. But it was also in between two dog barks that came from outside. And it's very possible it could have been a floor creak. I mean, this house we were in was built in 1900, has creaky floors. One of us could have shifted our weight and made that sound. Using my video or my audio software, I could not get it to clean up enough to where I could get a definitive conclusion that was an EVP.
Mm.
So they are fun to play with the editing software. I do like doing that. But a lot of times they're not clear enough to say, yeah, that's an EVP. Now we do have some that are very clear.
Absolutely.
And those are the ones those are really exciting to capture.
Now, do you guys like you run like with us or whatever, I like running EVP sessions first. I like running them first. And I like taking the responses, or if I get a response, from it to see if we get the same kind of responses. That's what I'm looking for out of the spirit box session.
Yeah.
I have a lot of equipment from John Huntington. You guys know who he is?
I haven't heard of him, though.
I have not.
John Huntington John Huntington is probably one of the best guys that I know, but he builds equipment, and he's been all over YouTube. His good friend is Exploring with Josh on YouTube, but he has been on so many paranormal shows, but he builds a lot of my equipment. And so we have a spirit box called the Huntington, and it's a radio, just a handheld radio or whatever. It's got a light bar on it. So, if something comes through, the light bar goes, but it's got a good sweep rate. And we use that. And what I look for is I look for similarities. If something comes through the EVP, that if around the same thing is coming through the spirit box. Now, do you guys do that too?
Yeah, we do like to use, not just with audio, but with anything. We like to use multiple pieces of equipment at the same time. And when we get things that react together, that's more likely that was a paranormal capture than not.
Yeah.
Unless it could be something like, how a lot of people like the REM pod.
Yeah.
The REM pod it can be a useful tool, but it's really not the most reliable piece of equipment.
It can be debunked.
You can take your two-way radio and click the button, it'll set it off.
Right, exactly. That's what I was about to say. I was about to say you got to be really careful, and also the vibration when you put your phone on vibrate. When you go to change the volume back up, sometimes that'll set off the red button.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey,
you got to be aware.
Chris has just commented. Can you read this, Jason, Gary?
Yeah.
Are you guys familiar with this piece or the software?
Isotope? No, I don't use that before.
Yeah.
Read that out loud.
I use WavePad.
Yeah, it's Isotope is an audio software that can scan. That can help clear up EVP Class B and C. VST compatible with most audio software appeals.
Chris is also part of our network too. He's also, and he deals a lot with software and stuff like that. So if you guys ever, need something or something, please feel free to reach out to Chris O'Toole. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it's really good to have somebody like that.
Thank-
Now, have you guys seen orbs?
All the time.
Oh,
Go ahead, Gary. You take this one.
well, sorry guys. So spirit orbs. The amount of photos people send me that have dusts and bugs and drop moisture floating through them, and they're like, "Oh my god, it's a spirit orb." No, I'm sorry, it's not. It's dust or bugs or moisture. If you're going to see a spirit orb, you're going to see it with your naked eye. You're not necessarily catch it on camera because of the way IR records.
Right.
But yes,
Right.
have I visibly seen a spirit orb? Absolutely, I have.
Yep. The reason why I asked that is I have 2 pictures that we took on orbs, and I've got 2 of them that were snap pictures, and they I mean, you can see energy. You can, I mean, it wasn't a light bar, or it wasn't dust or anything like that. And I really wanted to see if I could do something, and I had somebody enhance the pictures of the orbs that were in back of this picture 10,000 times. 10,000 times. And I've got these pictures I'll share with you guys on Messenger. I've got them, but they have faces in them.
Oh wow.
Now that I might.
Yeah, I think I've seen
But
those.
you have to consider that could be pareidolia though.
But they have faces in them. I mean, no, I mean, this is not, I mean, everything else around is black, and you got to remember we have them enhanced 10,000 times. So, I mean, with a enhancement, that face should not be able to fit perfectly inside that orb, but you can see in both pictures, there's one orb that is actually in motion that's coming down, and another one where it was a snap picture. And I mean, one of them is blue and one of them is like a light. I don't know. But they both have faces in them. I'll send those pictures to you so you guys can see it.
Take a look at that. Yeah.
What's the scariest experience you guys have had as investigators?
That's a tough one, Shane, because I don't really get scared of this stuff.
That's how I am too. That's how I am. But I know there's got to be something. Like I've got one in mind right now. Is something that I'll never forget. And a lot of people have not seen what I'll tell you, but I want to hear what you guys say first. Let's just hear, just give me an example.
Okay. Well, I had an experience, and this was on a client case. This was back a couple of years ago before the Dirt Team existed. We had a client that we were working with. We actually already did the investigation. I was with our psychic medium doing the cleansing, and I was just there for documentation purposes. The psychic medium, she was going around, she was doing the prayers and calling on the archangels and all that. I was just following her around with a video camera. That's all I was there for. And she had said she thought that there were demons in this house. Back then, I was just, well, I didn't think so. I didn't agree. I can just say I disagreed. I mean, she said that the way they looked, what she was seeing was black spider-like arachnid type figures. Now it was definitely malicious. I will say that based on what the family's accounts of what was going on, it was terrorizing a little kid. But when we were doing the cleansing, as she was doing the prayer, I just started feeling like my heart rate was getting really high.
Oh, wow.
I was starting to feel like I was going to pass out, but I didn't say anything. I was going to tough it out and just keep going. But finally, the homeowner, the client said, "Hey, are you okay? Because you're turning white." And finally, I just gave in and said, "No, I'm not okay. I need to sit down." And the psychic medium actually started doing a prayer over top. She had me sit down. She got behind me. She put her hands on my shoulders and started doing like a prayer over top of me. And in about 5 minutes, it was like this weight was released off of me. And I started getting color back in my face, and I came to. And she said, "Yeah, you just may not have been a demon, but you just did suffer a malicious attack." Now, why it came from me and not her, I don't know, because I was just there. She was the one doing all the praying and, you know, all that. So, but of all the experiences, that one was probably the most strange feeling I've ever had, because it actually took me about 3 days to recover after that. I was just
how were you feeling when it was happening? Did you feel oppressed by it? Did you feel like something was wrong? Like what was the feelings you were having during that time?
I was just feeling really drained of energy, and I was almost like when your blood pressure plummets and you feel like your vision starts going black. That's what was happening to me. And like I said, I just thought, I'm just going to tough it out. I'll just breathe through it. I thought maybe it was something, I don't know, maybe I was dehydrated or something. I didn't chalk that up to paranormal at all.
Yeah. I don't even think you think about it when that stuff starts happening. The best thing that I found is just get yourself out of the area. Go outside. Get outside, get some fresh air, do stuff like that, change up the environment, change up your breathing, stuff like that. I've had the same thing. I've seen it happen with an EVP, electrical transference. I know of someone that heard an EVP and a growl came through with a different voice coming through, and she had the EVP. Actually, Rich Valdez, his wife or girlfriend or something like that, had an electrical transference that happened where she was instantly in the oppression stage.
Yeah.
Oh.
From an EVP.
Right.
Wow.
And
that's bad.
I know, because I mean, like, you can tell the difference when somebody has that oppressive feeling. So that's what they had to do. They had to get her out of the situation, and they got her out of the house or whatever. And it took her a while to come back and stuff like that. But it's very, very possible that you can have things to affect you there. And that's why I'm so big into trying to teach and implement teams on proper grounding, proper clearing, and proper cleansings when you go to and from an area.
Yeah.
And that's why I encourage people, before you go in to, you do a self, like a clearing, a cleansing of yourself. And I use frankincense and stuff like that, and I say, and I release.
Yeah, Shane does it different by using the frankincense. Which is awesome.
I do it. I use a theological method for it. Some people use sage. It's just the cases that I've worked and I still continue to work. When people use sage, they have issues, because I had an Indian chief on here that was speaking, and I asked him particularly, I said, should a person who is not Native American, client-wise or investigator-wise, use sage?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, absolutely not.
Right.
Don't use it. So I use frankincense, and frankincense is biblical. And what I do is, before I go in, like say my wife and I were going into a location, I would take the frankincense and I would go around her body. I'd have her line up like this with her arms out, and I'd go and take the frankincense around like I'm drawing a chalk line of her body. And I would say, I release any and all negative energy in or around my wife, and I replace this energy with the light, love, peace, and protection of God.
Yeah.
So I pray it over her. I seal it. And then we go do the investigation. We're already protected going in. The energy is neutralized in case we have something going on. If we had a bad day, if we had, just anger or whatever it is, it's released before we go in. So we don't bring any negative energy in. And then before we leave, we do another cleansing as we leave to make sure that we don't carry any residual energy with us. Now, do you guys do that same thing? And what's your guys' methods? Like, when you do a cleanse, do you just use holy water? And
we don't do too much of the cleansing aspect of it. Usually we turn that over to the people that are way more qualified to do that than we are. So whether it be, having them reach out to clergy and having them come in, we do work with some Reiki experts. We have some people on the team that are capable of that. That's a little above my pay grade.
Yeah, well, see, that's Gary's on the Cleveland team. I'm on the Columbus team. And on the Columbus team, we actually have two very gifted psychic mediums.
Okay.
And we have one who her methods are more theological, more religious
The
based.
psychic?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And then we have another one who her methods are more dealing with frequencies, the singing bowls, the pendulums, those kind of things. That's how she does her clearing. So it really is a good asset to have on the team because, we don't have to refer them to clergy on the Columbus team. We can have, we have a one size fits all when it comes to that, because if we have a person who's not really, if their religion doesn't agree with that, we don't use the religious psychic medium. We'll use the spiritual one.
Okay.
If we have someone who is more a believer, in God and their faith is strong, then we'll bring that one in. So we can do it either way.
I have found that people, and I tell clients too, and say I have a client that's not a religious person, which, we have come encounter with people like that. And I tell them, I tell them flat, I said, I use a theological method of clearing and cleansing of a house. And they understand that. And they're like, well, I'm not a religious person. And then I wipe my head like sarcastically. And I'm like, thank goodness, because I'm not religious either. I just have a relationship. So I mean, when I lighten up the situation, and I'm not here to bring like any kind of churchy judgment to you. I'm here to bring a theological method that is tried and true when it comes to cleansing your house, your family, and everything. And my hopes is using that your family finds purpose to take that back, to take your environment back, take your peace back, take your happiness back, make the room a little lighter in there. That's my goal, when I go in. But I've had pretty good reception, with people, when I tell them that I use a theological method of cleansing. I use a very biblical, but I am apt to working with people, and I'm interested in talking with other people, how they do their cleansings, because if it works for you, that's all that matters, especially when you're dealing with a client. What I don't like is when paranormal teams go in and they'll go in, do an investigation, stir things up, and then it makes it worse for the client.
Yeah.
I don't like that. And I don't like when paranormal teams go in and they said, oh, you have an evil spirit or a demon. And then it gets them all scared and rowdy, and then they don't know what to do about it.
Right.
And
I don't like that.
That leaves teams like us that come in, and it's happened to me. I don't know if it's ever happened to Jason, but me specifically, I've gone in on at least 2 different cases and had to do damage control because of that.
No, what is your version of damage control? Because I'm sure it's probably the same around as mine. But what does that mean to you when you say damage control?
The one case in particular, she had a team come in. They told her that she had evil spirits in the house, that there was a demon in the home, that this demon was actually physically targeting her. And I said, okay, we're not going to go there right now. Let us do our investigation. I said, and then I'm going to sit down with you and your husband, and we're going to go over what the results are. And after doing that investigation, the stuff was completely explainable. They were hearing voices coming from their attic. And I'm a construction expert. And as a construction expert, I look at things very logically in a home. Sometimes there's explanation for voices in your home. In the neighborhood she was situated in, the way her home was constructed, she had 2 end vents out on the end caps of her house, and she was hearing every neighborhood child that was talking, laughing, giggling.
Oh, coming from the direction. Okay, yeah.
It was coming through the attic because there was very low insulation up there. It was wide open space up there, and it was amplifying it like a microphone. And this team had her convinced that these were demons trying to speak to her.
Demon.
Yeah. Demons.
Interesting.
That's terrible.
It took me a dozen conversations with her and her husband to bring her off the ledge.
And you see what I'm see, that's what I'm talking about right there, Gary. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You tell a client that, and it gets them all scared, all stirred up. They start thinking, "Oh, I have to protect my kid. We have to protect our family." The paranoia sets in, the fear sets in, and I mean things can get drastically worse for them. And I cannot stand when a paranormal team uses that term. And YouTube has made demonic so accessible that
Yeah.
everything is demonic.
Yeah, and it's been sensationalized too. Like
Yes.
it's almost like it's the end thing is to have a demonic infestation.
And Shane, I think you and I even breach this. Churches are bad for it too.
Yep, 100%. And that was my whole purpose here, is because me bridging the gap between paranormal and clergy. That's not to get like just paranormal comfortable with clergy working with them. That's also understanding that clergy can understand the paranormal too.
Mhm.
You know, and that's my goal is bridging. That's why my show is bridging the seen and unseen. It is bridging the gap between paranormal and clergy, and I think it's very important. And I'm not talking about a theological clergy. Like there's different clergies. There's different, you know, people that are Buddhist, people that are Muslim, people that are, you know, they have their ways of doing it. And if it works helping people, who am I to say that you shouldn't do that?
Yeah.
I'm not going to judge the way somebody, but what I will do is that if you go in and you make a client's situation worse, that does aggravate me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One of my cases that I had at the first of the year is actually going to be on a show in the fall. It's called My Haunted Hometown.
Mhm.
And they came down from Canada and they filmed one of my clients. My clients wanted his story told. My client literally had 2 paranormal teams come in, a demonologist, and a priest. And none of it worked. His situation was getting worse. So one of the team members reached out to me and they were like, "Hey, could you take a look at this?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll take a look at it." And we went. My wife and I do it all. You know, we went. We had a long conversation with them over the phone. We had a face-to-face with them. We had a very thorough interview session with them. I found out one thing that I always ask is how many people in your home is this affecting?
Yeah.
And it's important to know that, because like in this case that I'm referring to, it wasn't affecting anybody else in the household. It was affecting the dad.
Mhm.
So I was like, well, why is it affecting the dad? So we did the investigation, you know, between EVP, spirit box sessions, Shane, my client, was able to come in and he was actually able to confront the entity that was there. And let me tell you what the entity was, guys. It was a guy by the name, and we got this all on Spirit Box. We kept getting Franklin, we kept getting Henry, we kept getting Railroad, we kept getting Explosion, we kept getting all kind of stuff that were coming through our Spirit Box. And we had all that down. And I just happened to look at the dynamic or his area, you know, geographically. And about a quarter of a mile away from his house is a railroad track that runs back in the back of his house. And I looked up and I said, you know, I wonder. And I just looked it and I looked it up. And in 1973, was 72 or 73. It was 72 or 73. Franklin Henry was a 28-year-old firefighter who was on a train with 6 other firefighters. And a propane leak came on that train and blew him up instantly. And he was married. He had kids and stuff like that. And so that was all coming through on the spirit box, and that's what we found out. So he was actually able to confront, Franklin Henry. And the funny thing is, I found a news article with Franklin Henry from that time, and I got a picture of him. I got a picture of Franklin Henry. And if you took my client and you took a picture of Franklin Henry and put them right next to each other and took the glasses off of Franklin Henry, they looked identical.
Wow.
He was living vicariously through my client.
Yeah.
Because he no longer had his family. And it wasn't like it was drastic, like he like Franklin was going and taking Shane's shoes off his shelf and throwing them on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Or picking up his razor in the bathroom and throwing it in the shower.
Yeah.
And it was affecting him like that. So but when the paranormal teams came in, they were like, oh, you have a dark spirit that's attached to, this toy or something that was in there and his family was getting nervous, and they're like, man, are we gonna have to move? But then they found out that what it was, and Shane was able to come with me when I did the cleansing. I did the whole cleansing of his house. And like I said, I do a very thorough cleansing. And at the very end of it, I get the family together. I got Shane and his family together. We prayed together, and Shane took his family back. He said, you are no longer welcome here. You have to go. And before we sealed the door, I like to take a REM pod and put it in the open door. And when we told Franklin Henry, I said, you have to go. We're not here to judge you. We are not here to judge you. That is not our job. But you have to go from here. You cannot affect him anymore. This is not your family. This is his family. You have to go. And so there is a light back here that you go through. You go, and brother, let me tell you something. I'm standing at the door, and I felt the coldest draft go right past me.
Yeah.
Right past me. Made the hair stand up, goes right past, REM pod goes off, everything. Then we sealed the door, sealed the front and back of the door. And one thing, I sealed the outside, and I take a Benedict medallion, and I put holy water on it, and I dig down about 3 foot in their yard. I dig down in their yard a little bit, and I bury it in their yard and pour holy water across the top of it, and I seal their yard from anything being able to come back in or anything. Do you know that to this day, I still talk to him, and he has not had one single issue.
Yeah. Interesting.
One single issue from it. And that's because I took my time. I listened to him. I listened to what the spirit box was telling me. I believe my intuition that this wasn't an evil person. This was someone who had a tragic death that was living vicariously through Shane because he lost his family. Can you imagine?
Right.
Franklin Henry's wife and children are probably still living.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's going to be on that My Haunted Hometown. That was my case that I worked. They came and filmed. They did a 2-day filming with him, and then Angie and I came in and did the filming on the investigation, the clearing and cleansing of their home, and that will be on My Haunted Hometown in the fall.
So it sounds like you essentially got him to cross over.
Yes.
Now that's a question I get a lot from clients is, I explain to them the process. We do the intake interview, the pre-investigation, the investigation, if needed, the cleansing and the clearing. And one question I often get is, well, can you cross them over? Can you get rid of them? And I always tell them I can't give you a good answer for that because free will exists in the afterlife.
Yeah, they have to, but they have to understand. One thing they have to understand is that you're not there to judge them. You're not there to hold or harbor any kind of ill emotions, and the clients shouldn't either. And they should promote them moving on. They should promote them because your energy can create a light for them that they can go through. Another thing that can create a light is a white candle.
Yeah.
You put a white candle there, it puts a light out, for them to be able to create. And that's all energy right there. But go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting.
I always tell them, I can't tell you that we can encourage them. We can let them know it's safe and they're okay to do it. But free will is free will. If they don't want to leave, they're not going to leave.
That's exactly it.
There's no psychic medium in the world that can force a spirit to cross over.
Yep.
They're just not.
And us either, with doing it even on our side, not the psychic side, but that's there's no guarantee there either. But what I do is I do aftercare too.
Right.
So I keep in contact with them if they need. The only other issue that I had with this client is he went to an army and military store and he bought like one of their soldiers' vests that belonged to a soldier that died in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of energy off that. It seemed when he didn't have it out of the attic or whatever, he tried to put the thing in his room to set it up. And the same kind of energy was happening. Like shoes were coming off, just the bed would shake a little bit, and we narrowed it that was coming in. And he called me back and he said, "Do you think you could do a cleansing, on this vest?" And I came through and I called the name is still on it. I called the name. I cleared it. I sealed it with holy water. I sealed it with holy oil. I did everything that I could. And when I got done, he said the energy when he went to grab it was totally different. And he was able to take it from in the attic and actually put it in his room because there's nothing attached to it anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Shane, we have like 3 minutes.
3 minutes? God, I just want to say I thank you both for coming on here. It's been a pleasure talking with you guys. And I really look forward to working with you guys. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to work with you on, how I do, the clearing, cleansing, and demonic activity. I just want you guys to be as successful as you can. And I want you to know that I'll always be here to help you guys whenever you need.
Thank you so much, Shane. We really appreciate you.
Absolutely. And I thank you guys for coming on. The show's been amazing. I think it's just good having people like you on. Why don't you tell people on here how they can find you online?
If you go to tcghohio.com is our website. So if anyone needs help, if you're experiencing paranormal activity, we do have a button you can push to submit a claim. And once you do that, you'll hear from a lead investigator within, I'd say, probably 24 to 48 hours. I think that's the amount of time it takes for me to respond. Usually it's the same day. But what happens is those claims will go to the founder up in Cleveland. He'll distribute them out. So it might take 1 to 2 days to get a response back, but we will respond. So
we also have links on there for the PCI page.
Yes.
And we are also on Facebook as well.
Right.
Yeah. And guys, please, everybody that's watching, please go join their pages because these are great guys there. You talk about leaders that are in the paranormal. You're looking at 2 of them right here. These are awesome guys. And I mean, it's an awesome team. The way that they've developed that, the way everything is just phenomenal. I really enjoy speaking and working with these guys. So please go join their pages because it's well worth it. Thank you guys for coming on. Thank you guys for just being amazing guests. And I look forward to working with you really soon. But I really appreciate you coming on tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Shane.
Thank you so much for having us, guys.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm going to pull you down. You can talk in the back for just a second. If you give us just a minute, okay?
You got it.
All right, guys. All right.
All right.
That's amazing.
Good show, Shane. Good show.
See, I know, and I mean, conversations like that should be organic, and it was like that when I was working with them too. They are just phenomenal people, and I mean, they're so in tune with who they are and what they're doing, and their wanting and willingness to help people is so commendable, and I love that about them. So please go on and join Tri-C Ghost Hunters page. You will not be disappointed. They are there to help you. They are there for you. But guys, I'm gonna try to find another awesome guest next week. But you guys stay safe, be blessed always, and stay spooky, people. Peace.